Greetings and salutations. This is the Adjutant. If you spent 20 or 30 years serving this country, you probably prepared for deployments, you've prepared for inspections, you've prepared for promotions, you prepared for schools, evaluation, physical fitness tests, and missions that required months of planning. But there's one mission that too many service members never fully prepare for: retirement. And here's what surprises me after more than 26 years in the Army, more than 2 decades as a VA adjudicator, as well as a homeless veterans coordinator and yellow ribbon project coordinator, and giving presentations all around my area, years of practicing law, and years teaching as an adjunct college professor. The people who struggle the most in retirement usually aren't the ones who lack discipline. They're often the ones who are the most disciplined. They're the first sergeants, they're the command sergeant majors, they're the captains, they're the majors, the colonels, the chiefs, the senior NCOs who knew how to lead organizations, manage millions of dollars in equipment, and accomplish missions under incredible pressure. Yet many of them stumbled after retirement because no one ever taught them how to transition from serving a mission to designing a life. I remember talking to a retired soldier who had done everything right, or at least that's what he thought. He had earned his retirement, he had received rewards, he had respectable pension, his children were grown, he walked away from the military believing he had reached the finish line. Now, about a year later, we had another conversation. He looked tired, and not physically, emotionally. He said something I will never forget. Nobody told me retirement would feel like this. He wasn't talking about money. He wasn't talking about health care. He wasn't talking about his disability rating. He said, every morning I wake up and nobody needs me. Now, that sentence actually stayed with me for years, because retirement isn't just a financial transition, it's an identity transition. It's an emotional transition. It's a relational transition. It is a spiritual transition. And if you only prepare your bank account while ignoring everything else, retirement can be one of the loneliest seasons of your life. That's why I wanted to make this video. Today, we're going to walk through the biggest retirement mistakes I see veterans make over and over again. Some of these mistakes cost people thousands of dollars. Others cost them opportunities. Some cost them peace. And one of them quietly robs people of retirement they spent decades working toward. If you stay with me until the end, I'll share the mistake that I believe causes more long-term regret than any other. And it probably isn't the one you're thinking about. Let's begin. Now, the first mistake may seem simple, but don't underestimate it. Mistake number 10, retiring without a written plan. Now, notice I didn't say having a plan. I said having a written plan. Those are two very different things. Whenever I ask people about retirement, many of them tell me, I haven't figured it out yet. Then I ask a few questions. How much income will you receive every month? What percentage comes from your pension? What percentage comes from your VA disability? When will you claim Social Security? And by the way, I did a standalone video about that on my channel. You should check it out. What's your healthcare strategy? How much money do you need every month to maintain your lifestyle? What happens if inflation continues? How will your surviving spouse be protected? And suddenly, I'll figure it out. That's not a retirement plan. That's hope. Hope is wonderful, but hope is not a financial strategy. The military never planned operations that way. Now, imagine your commander saying, we'll just head toward the objective and hope everything kind of works out. No. There were no contingency plans, primary routes, alternate routes, supply plans, communication plans, medical evacuation plans, because successful missions are built through thorough preparation. Your retirement deserves the same level of planning. Write everything down. Know your numbers. Know your income. Know your expenses. Know your goals, because retirement is no different than any other mission you've ever accomplished. Success is rarely accidental. Now, here's the interesting part, folks. Even if your plan changes, and it probably will, you'll still be ahead of the person who never created one in the first place. Planning does not eliminate uncertainty. Planning prepares you to adapt. That's an important difference. Now, let's move to mistake number 9. This is one I see far too often. Mistake number 9, believing your military retirement check is enough. And I understand why people think this. After all, you've worked decades to earn that retirement. You sacrificed birthdays, anniversaries, family gatherings, deployments, missed holidays. You earned every penny. But here's the reality. Your pension was never designed to be your entire financial future. It was designed to become one part of your financial foundation. Now, think of your retirement like a table, all right? A table supported by one leg eventually falls. A strong table has multiple legs supporting it. So your military pension is just one leg. Your VA disability compensation may be another. Your thrift savings plan becomes another. Social Security becomes another. Real property, a business, consulting, teaching, speaking, royalties, dividend income. Every additional string strengthens that table. One of the reasons I enjoy creating these videos isn't simply because I enjoy teaching. I genuinely love teaching, but I also recognize something. This channel represents another leg underneath my own retirement. It allows me to continue serving veterans while building something meaningful that can continue producing value long after I stop working full time. Retirement isn't about replacing work with doing nothing. It's about replacing required work with meaningful work. That's a completely different mindset. Now, many veterans accidentally retire from their purpose instead of retiring from their job. And those are not the same thing. You don't have to stop contributing. You simply get to choose where your contribution goes. Now, for some people, that's mentoring. For others, it's consulting. Some volunteer, some teach, some start businesses they dreamed about for years. The point is this: don't build your future around one paycheck. Build it around multiple streams that give freedom, because freedom, not simply income, is what retirement should ultimately provide. Now, let's move to mistake number 8. Now, this one actually frustrates because it's almost completely preventable. Mistake number 8, waiting until retirement to learn about VA disability benefits. Now, over the years, folks, I have watched countless service members spend decades mastering military regulations. They know promotion systems, assignment systems, evaluation system, leave policies, retirement points, finance regulations, yet many of them spend almost no time learning about VA disability until they're already walking out the gate. That always surprises me because for many veterans, VA disability compensation becomes one of the largest components of their retirement income. Yet they begin learning about it after they've already separated. Imagine waiting after graduation to ask what classes you needed. That's pretty much the same thing. Imagine waiting until after buying a house to learn how mortgages work. Preparation almost always produces better outcomes. I'm not encouraging anyone to exaggerate symptoms. I'm not encouraging anyone to file fraudulent claims. Quite the opposite. I'm encouraging you to become informed. Understand the process. Document your medical conditions while you're still serving. Seek treatment when appropriate. Keep copies of important records. Learn how the claim process actually works instead of relying on rumors floating around the barracks or social media. One of the greatest privileges of my career has been helping veterans understand this system. I've seen lives transformed. I'm talking about homeless veterans who were sleeping under a bridge one day and the next month they're receiving $4,000 or more a month for the rest of their life. Not because people gamed the process, but because they finally understood the benefits they had already earned through their service. Knowledge reduces anxiety. Preparation reduces mistakes. And both can be an enormous difference during your transition. Now, the next mistake is one that almost nobody likes to talk about because it's not exciting. It doesn't make flashy headlines, but ignoring it can quietly cost you tens of thousands of dollars over the course of retirement. All right, let's talk about taxes. All right, let's talk about taxes. Now I know the moment I say that word, some of you already thinking, here we go. This is the boring part. All right, stay with me, folks. All right, stay with me. All right. Because taxes don't have to be exciting to be expensive. One of the biggest mistakes I see veterans make is assuming that retirement should somehow means taxes become simple. Now, in reality, retirement often introduces an entirely new set of tax decisions. Now, depending on where you live, your military pension may be taxed differently than, say, someone else. Your withdrawals from your thrift savings plan may have tax consequences. Traditional retirement accounts and Roth accounts are treated differently. Required minimum distributions eventually enter the picture. Social Security may or may not be taxable depending on your overall income. The point isn't that you need to become a tax expert. The point is that you need to recognize taxes as part of your retirement strategy, not an afterthought. I have seen people spend years trying to earn another 1 or 2% of their investment while completely overlooking tax planning that could have saved them far more money. Sometimes protecting your wealth isn't about earning more. Sometimes it's about keeping more of what you have already earned. And that's why I encourage veterans to begin these conversations early. Don't wait until you're signing your retirement paperwork. Don't wait until you're already withdrawing money. Build a team. Ask questions. Learn. A few hours of planning today can save you years of frustration later. Okay? Now, let's move to another mistake. This one creates more debate than almost any other topic in military retirement. Mistake number 6, making emotional decisions about your TSP. The day many veterans retire, they feel like they have to do something with their thrift savings plan immediately. Some roll everything into an IRA without understanding why. Others cash it out because they think it'll invest it better themselves. Some leave it alone simply because they're afraid to make a decision. Notice something? All 3 of those choices can be right, and all 3 of them can be wrong. It depends on your situation. That's why I always caution people against making emotional financial decisions. Your TSP isn't just another account. For many military families, it's one of the largest assets they've spent decades building. Treat it with the respect it deserves. Put some respect on that name, if you will. Understand your investment options. Understand the fees. Understand your withdrawal strategy. Understand why you're making a particular decision, not simply because someone at work said that's what they did. I've learned something else over the years, all right? And that's the loudest financial advice is rarely the best advice. The person speaking with the most confidence isn't always the person with the most wisdom. Slow down, study, ask questions, make informed decisions. Because once large financial mistakes are made, they often take years to recover from. Now, let's move to one that almost everyone can relate to. Mistake number 5, lifestyle inflation. Now, I completely understand the temptation. You worked hard, you've deployed, you've missed birthdays, you sacrificed with your family. Now retirement is finally here. You tell yourself, I've earned it. And you have. But here's the danger. Sometimes we confuse rewarding ourselves with burdening ourselves. A bigger house, a brand new luxury truck, a boat, an RV, expensive toys, higher monthly payments, more insurance, more financial pressure. Suddenly, the retirement that was supposed to give you freedom quietly becomes another paycheck to paycheck lifestyle. One of the greatest forms of wealth isn't owning more, it's needing less. Think about that. One of the greatest forms of wealth isn't owning more, it's needing less. I've met retirees with very large income who constantly worry about money. I've also met retirees with modest incomes who sleep peacefully every night. The difference wasn't always income, the difference was margin. Margin creates peace. Debt often steals it. When I think about retirement, I don't dream about impressing strangers. I think about freedom, freedom to travel, freedom to spend time with people I love, freedom to serve, freedom to teach, freedom to say yes to opportunities that matter. Those things don't require consistent upgrades. They require wise stewardship. That's a lesson I wish more people understood before they retired. Now we're going to shift some gears right now, okay? Because the next mistake has nothing to do with money, and yet it may be one of the most dangerous mistakes of all. Mistake number 4, thinking retirement means you're finished working. All right, let me explain what I mean by that. For years, your identity has probably been connected to your rank, your uniform, your title. People know exactly who you were. Every morning you had somewhere to be, someone to depend on. You had structure, you had purpose, you had responsibility. Then one day, it all changes. Not because your value changed, because your role changed. Now, that's a huge difference. One of the retired officers I deeply respected once told me something I'll never forget. He said, "Thomas, don't retire from something, retire to something." At the time, I thought I understood what he meant. Years later, I realized how profound those words really were. Retirement should never become the end of contribution. It should become the beginning of intentional contribution. That's one of the reasons this YouTube channel means so much to me. I'm not making videos because I need another title. I'm making videos because I still believe my experiences can help someone else avoid unnecessary pain. Purpose didn't end when I took off my uniform. Purpose simply changed uniforms. And perhaps that's true for you too. Maybe your next mission isn't the Army. Maybe it's mentoring young veterans. Maybe it's serving your community. Maybe it's teaching. It's writing, starting a nonprofit, building a business, investing in your grandchildren. Your mission isn't over, it's evolving. And if you approach retirement that way, you'll experience something far richer than simply having more free time. You'll continue living with meaning. All right. Now we come to the mistake that I believe surprises people the most because nobody expects it. Nobody plans for it. And yet I've seen it over and over again. And that's mistake number 3, failing to prepare emotionally for retirement. Remember the veteran I mentioned at the beginning of this video, the one who looked at me and quietly said, "Nobody needs me anymore"? I've never forgotten that conversation because underneath those words was something much deeper. It wasn't asking for another paycheck. He wasn't asking for another paycheck. He wasn't asking for another promotion. He wasn't asking to go back on active duty. He was grieving the loss of identity. The military gives us more than employment. It gives us belonging. It gives us routine. It gives us accountability. It gives us friendship, mission, shared hardship. When those things suddenly disappear, many veterans begin asking questions they never had to ask before. Who am I now? What value do I still have? Where do I belong? Those questions aren't signs of weakness. They're signs that you are entering a brand new season of life. But here's the good news, folks. Identity was never supposed to rest on a uniform. The uniform revealed your character. It didn't create it. Leadership didn't disappear because you retired. Integrity didn't disappear. Wisdom didn't disappear. Discipline didn't disappear. Those qualities came with you. The uniform simply gave them a place to operate. Now it's your responsibility to find new places where those same gifts can continue serving others. That's what healthy retirement looks like. Not the end of usefulness, the beginning of a different kind of impact. And in the final part of this video, we're going to talk about the 2 mistakes that quietly shape everything else we've discussed. One has to do with relationships. The other may be the single biggest financial mistakes veterans make over an entire career. And when we get there, I want to bring you back to the veteran whose story opened this video, because what happened next completely changed the way I think about retirement. Now, let's finish with what I believe are the 2 most important retirement mistakes veterans make. Neither one gets talked about nearly enough. And yet, these 2 decisions can shape the quality of the next 20 or 30 years of your life. Let's begin with mistake number 2. Mistake number 2 is waiting until retirement to build a civilian relationships. One of the beautiful things about military life is that community almost comes built in. You're surrounded by people who understand your language, your experiences, your humor, your sacrifices. You don't have to explain what a PCS is. You don't have to explain a deployment. You don't have to explain why missing holidays became normal. The military creates an instant tribe. Then retirement comes, and suddenly, many veterans discover that nearly every meaningful relationship they had was connected to the uniform. The phone rings less, the invitations become fewer, people PCS, others retire, life moves on. That's not because anyone stopped caring, it's because seasons change. One of the wisest things you can do long before retirement is begin building relationships outside of the military. Get involved in your community, volunteer, develop friendships with people from different walks of life. If you're planning to start a business, begin building that network now. If you think you may consult one day, begin developing those relationships now. If you want to teach, start meeting educators now. Don't wait until retirement to build the bridge you'll eventually need to cross. One lesson I've learned over the years is this: relationships compound just like investments. The longer you invest in them, the greater the return. Now we've reached what I believe is the biggest retirement mistake of all, and it almost has nothing to do with retirement itself. Mistake number 1, waiting until retirement to start building wealth. I want you to hear this carefully, okay? Sit up for this. Retirement does not create financial security. It reveals it. Retirement doesn't suddenly make someone wealthy. It exposes the habit they've been practicing for decades. If someone has consistently invested, lived below their means, avoided unnecessary debt, learned about money, and made thoughtful financial decisions, retirement simply allows those habits to continue working. But if someone spent 20 or 30 years assuming that their pension alone would solve every problem, retirement also reveals that too. Now, here's something I wish every young soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, Guardian, and Coast Guardsman could hear on their very first day of service. Time is the greatest wealth building tool you'll ever possess. Not luck, not timing the market, not finding the perfect investment. Time. The earlier you begin investing in yourself, your education, your TSP, your financial knowledge, and your future, the more options you'll have when retirement finally arrives. We spend years planning for promotion, years planning for assignments, years preparing for inspection. Why wouldn't we spend those same years preparing for the one transition every one of us hopes to experience? Retirement isn't an event. It's the result of thousands of decisions made long before your final out-processing appointment. Now, do you remember the veteran I told you about at the beginning of this video? The one who quietly said, "Nobody needs me anymore"? Well, a few years after that conversation, I had the opportunity to see him again. This time, he looked different. He smiled more. His posture had changed. There was an energy about him that I hadn't seen before. I asked him what happened. He smiled and said something I'll never forget. "I stopped trying to get my old life back and started building a new one." He had begun mentoring younger veterans. He was volunteering in his community. He had become involved in his church. He was spending more intentional time with his family. He found his purpose again, not because retirement magically became easy, but because he realized something that all of us eventually have to learn. Purpose isn't assigned by the military. Purpose is chosen. That conversation changed me. It reminded me that retirement isn't simply about pensions, investments, disability ratings, or health care. Those things do matter. They matter actually a great deal. But retirement is ultimately about stewardship. Stewardship of your time, stewardship of your experience, stewardship of your relationship, stewardship of your health, stewardship of wisdom you spent decades earning. You didn't spend 20 or 30 years becoming the person you are just so you could spend the rest of your life sitting still. The military prepared you to lead, to solve problems, to remain calm under pressure, to preserve, to persevere. Those gifts didn't expire the day you retired. The uniform may came off, but your character remains. Your wisdom remains. Your ability to encourage someone who's struggling remains. Your ability to mentor the next generation remains. Never underestimate how valuable your story is. Someone else is walking through today what you already survived. Your experience may become the roadmap that helps another veteran avoid years of unnecessary hardship. That's one of the reasons I started this channel. After serving in the Army for more than 26 years, after practicing law, after teaching college students, after spending more than 2 decades helping veterans navigate the VA system, I realized something. Knowledge doesn't change lives until it's shared. I've made mistakes. I've learned lessons the hard way. I've had seasons where I wish someone older and wiser had, kind of pulled me aside and simply said, "Thomas, before you make that decision, let's talk." If I can be that voice for someone else, then every one of those experiences has been worth it. And that's my hope for this community. Not just that we become wealthier, although I certainly want that for you. Not just that we understand our benefits better, although I do want that too. My hope is that we become wiser, because wisdom has a way of multiplying everything else. It protects your finances. It strengthens your relationship. It deepens your purpose. And it helps you enjoy the life you've worked so hard to build. If you're approaching retirement, I want to leave you with one final thought. Don't think about retirement as the finish line. Think of it as graduation. Graduation isn't the end of learning. It's the beginning of applying everything you've learned. The same is true here. Retirement isn't the end of your usefulness. It's the beginning of choosing how you'll use everything you spent a lifetime becoming. And that is a future worth preparing for. If this video encouraged you, I appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. Every Sunday and Wednesday, we talk about military retirement, VA disability benefits, military wealth, and practical strategies to help you build the life you've earned. And on Thursdays, I share personal stories and life lessons that remind us that success isn't just measured by what we accumulate, but by the people we become along the way. I truly believe your best years don't have to be behind you. And for many veterans, they can still be ahead of you. And so there you have it. I hope this has been helpful. I hope you found value in today's discussion. Thank you for spending this time with me. And until next time, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and continue building a life of purpose, wisdom, and service. I wish you all blessings and blessings. Shalom.